So we have a massive bombshell update in regards to Tesla stock that we absolutely have to talk about because it could literally flip the switch on everything. Now, unfortunately, it's bad news, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we have to talk about it because it's happening this week. And it could definitely influence the price action for Tesla stock. Now, before I go ahead and break that bad news, I kind of want to just talk about the price action that we've recently seen, as well as the fundamentals, right? I like to combine the technicals as well as the fundamentals. And what we see from the fundamentals is something that's a bit scary. And I want you guys to really pay attention to this because it shows the extreme dichotomy between what we're seeing with the price of Tesla and what we're seeing with how Tesla is actually doing. Now here I have highlighted the earnings per share estimates. And what we see is that 12 months ago, we've seen earnings per share estimates decline. They've dropped like a rock, right? So essentially, the price for Tesla is actually higher than what it was 12 months ago. However, we're seeing analysts look at the numbers and kind of shake their heads and say, this is not looking good, right? And what this shows, or what this really kind of is called, is a valuation risk. Because when you have a company going up, but the fundamentals are not there and they're adjusted lower and lower, that means that the company is being priced on promises and not current financial strength. And of course, a stock can go up higher than what the fundamentals currently are. That happens all the time. Think about what ended up happening during the GameStop debacle, right? Where we had all these meme stocks, not even GameStop. Think of all the meme stocks that went to the moon based on nothing. And then eventually they all crashed, right? We talked about those in this channel before. Now, for Tesla, it's not looking good. And we'll talk about the earnings because I did make a video before the earnings and we'll kind of highlight that as well, like what my prediction was and what ended up happening. But I also want to highlight why we saw a pop on Tesla, right? Because remember, we dropped after the earnings, but then we had a nice little pop. We had this hollow candle that was pretty bullish. And the reason we saw this bullish candle was because of what we saw here of Tesla looking to roll out its robo-taxi service in the Bay Area this weekend. Now that's a positive, that's a plus. However, one thing that we have to be mindful of is that these are still going to have the safety monitor, in the driver's seats with full access to the brake and steering wheels, which thank goodness that's going to be a thing because of course safety is a top priority. But the reason why this isn't really the hallelujah news that you want to think of, investors, plowed money into Tesla stock based off this, but we also have to think realistically. Tesla's looking to scale in multiple cities with its robo-taxi service, which is great. We want that expansion, but them still having to have a safety monitor, meaning a person in the car, what that means is that it's going to be a challenge to scale profitably because you're still going to have to hire a bunch of people to sit in these cars, right? And that's not something that is going to be as scalable as something as let's say Waymo, which already has robo-taxi services without a safety monitor, right? Now, I know some people are not going to like that. Just have to call it as it is. But what we also have to talk about is this, right? This is very cool. I really love the idea that of the Tesla diners, and the reason that I mentioned this is because I feel like this earnings call that we recently had with Tesla was kind of just hiding all the bad information, kind of sweeping it away and saying, look, we got distractions. We got optimists, putting popcorn in the popcorn bag, and we got a diner. And it's ultimately just looks like a huge distraction. Yes, this is a great looking diner. I would absolutely 100% go if I wasn't on a current mission to get beautiful six-pack abs right now. But I mean, I'm a big fan of a good burger, and honestly, this just makes me. I'm a big fan of marketing and branding, and I love the whole Cybertruck branding for the food. But it honestly is just one big distraction, and it really is meaningless. So a lot of Tesla zealots, a lot of Tesla fans are like, look, this is great news, we have diners, and this is cool. It's really nothing, right? It's really nothing. In fact, what we actually saw today, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, depending on what your political views are, we're not going to delve into that, but we see a bunch of, this was just a few hours ago taken today, a bunch of protesters are kind of swarming around the Tesla diners. So Tesla, they mentioned that they want to scale and build more of these diners, and it may not be a thing that's going to come to reality, especially if we have people who are protesting. And again, the reason why people are protesting is because of the political affiliation that Elon has had, and his stance on certain topics and his controversial issues, which we're not going to go ahead and touch on in this video, but I've mentioned that it has done some significant brand damage, and it makes it hard for people to even, like myself, wanting to even try the diner despite being agnostic to Elon Musk's political views. I honestly, as much as I love this burger, I don't think I want to go if I had to be greeted by people that are maybe threatening to do bad things to my car or to me, right? So not looking good. Honestly, not looking good. Now we have to talk about the earnings, because prior to the earnings, I said, look, the numbers are not going to look good. I knew that the numbers were not going to look good for the earnings. However, based on historical data, I said, look, we've had multiple earnings where the numbers didn't look good, but as long as Elon Musk comes out optimistic and very bullish and makes more promises, we could see the stock fly up. We've seen that happen multiple times. And I said, unless we get Elon Musk coming in gloomy and doomy, then we would likely see Tesla stock fall down. Now, what we ended up happening, or what we ended up seeing, was Elon Musk said there's going to be a few rough quarters ahead. So he basically came into this earnings call just like he did back in 2022 in one of his earnings calls, where it was very, very bearish and pessimistic. And of course, no one likes that. And that's why we saw a huge drop in Tesla. Now, from a technical standpoint, it did hold above this green line, which is the exponential 200-day moving average, so that's good news. However, as we pushed up, we kind of closed, with the positive news of the expansion of the robo-taxi service. We didn't break above the 50-day moving average, so we're kind of in this bound between the 200-day and the 50-day. Now, if we kind of zoom out, something else I want to point out is that in the past, this area over here used to be a demand zone where when Tesla stock touched this area, demand came in and it bounced up. However, as we broke down this demand zone, it ended up being an area of resistance, right? It's an area of supply, really. And that's really what you would call the principal polarities. Old support tends to be new resistance. And then when we pair that up, when we're looking at this over here on the right-hand side, which is what we call volume profile, we have a lot of volume relative to price here, which means that this is kind of where investors see a fair value, right? That means, to really explain this, right, this bar right over here, this high volume node, that means that both the buyers and the sellers, they agree, hey, this is the area price should be. And we don't really see rapid moves unless we are in low volume nodes. So think about when we were flying upwards, that was in the area where we had this pocket of volume. When we fell downwards, again, this area of a pocket, where there's this volume pocket. And again, going upwards, it's going to be the same thing all the time, because as long as there's buying pressure or selling pressure around these low volume nodes, you're going to see the order books exponentially move up or down. That's something that I preach and I talk about very often. It's one of the key elements to how I look into the market, and I explain this for those that are part of the Push and Profit Insider group. We talk about volume profile often. Now, again, we have things working against us. High volume node. We also have here this area of supply, which is going to act as an area of resistance. I mean, we pretty much got rejected over here. And then on top of that, the fundamentals are not looking great. But we also have something else that's kind of pretty bad, right? And honestly, it's kind of scary to think about. And that's this over here, right? That's the fact that the Department of Motor Vehicles from California, they're looking to do a 30-day ban on the sale of vehicles for Teslas in California. Now, that would be devastating if that were to take place, because California is a key market for Tesla, right? A lot of Tesla owners reside in California. A lot of Tesla buyers reside in California. And this is bad. Now, this has to go with this ongoing lawsuit about, full self-driving and autopilot being misleading and, just something that was deceptive. And so they're looking to just do a 30-day ban, which I know 30 days sounds like a small amount of time, but that would really hurt Tesla for the third quarter coming up. Now, do I think it's going to happen? I don't think so, but there's going to be court hearings that are going to, it's going to be taking place this week in the next 5 days, pretty much all week, where we're basically going to have Tesla and, the people from the California Department of Motor Vehicles kind of try to talk it through and see what ends up taking place. Now, if that happens, very bad. We already talked about how the fundamental levels for Tesla are not looking good. This happens, well, we could easily see Tesla drop back to 274, and then from there we would have to reevaluate from 274 and look at, if there's any other catalysts that can shape the direction for Tesla. But right now, things are not looking good for Tesla, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but from the perspective I take, right, I'm not someone that I marry a stock just because I love the brand or the culture. No, right? I like to find things that are undervalued and buy them and watch it appreciate and then eventually scale out and find the next thing, right? That's kind of the art of swing trading. I often share my trade ideas for trades and going in and out for those that are insiders at Push and Profit Research. I do daily briefings every day so that the markets are open. If you're interested, check that out. It's going to be in the link down in the description below. But before you guys go, make sure to also check out this video right over here, because while Tesla stock is looking pretty bad, the overall market is actually looking pretty optimistic. So check out that video, and I'll see you guys on that next video. Take care, guys.